All right, welcome back to a special interview edition of the Damon Bruce Show, brought to you by Ike's Sandwiches, and I'm very happy to bring in our guest here, Danny Parkins, who is the king of afternoon drive in Chicago for a little radio station they call The Score, and it's a pleasure to have you on here, Danny. He's got a new book. We got an NFL draft to talk about, so there's a few reasons why I wanted to have you drop on by. Thanks for making time. How you doing?
Damon, man, it's long overdue. Happy to be on.
Pipeline to the pros. How D3 small college nobodies rose to rule the NBA. First of all, love the premise and just the idea of a book. Before a single pen hits paper, you got to come up with the idea. Where'd this one come from?
So I can't take credit. So there's a co-author here. It's Ben Kaplan. Ben is my best friend since third grade. So our mutual friend, Nick Wright, is my best friend since college. Ben and Nick were both groomsmen in my wedding. Ben lives 10 minutes away from me. Our wives are close. Our sons are close. Our parents are close. Family. We're basically family. And I honestly don't know that we've ever spoken on the phone. He texts me because we always hang out in person or text. We're guys. And he texts me. He goes, "Hey, can you get on the phone? I want to run something by you." I'm like, "Oh man, this must be serious." And he says, "Did you know that 12 of the 30 teams in the NBA, either their coach or their top basketball decision maker, GM or president, played D3 basketball?" I said, "I had no idea. That's crazy." He goes, "Yeah, I think there's a book here." He's like, "But nobody would buy a book on this from a data analyst." I'm like, "That's probably true." I'm like, "But I don't know that anyone would buy a book on this from me either."
From a loudmouth.
Right, exactly. I'm like, there would have to be like real star power. And he's like, Greg Popovich, Sam Presti, Brad Stevens, Jeff Van Gundy. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh, okay. And so we decided to partner up, and that's how the idea happened. And there's some more personal connection to it that we can get into if you
Sorry,
want.
I have a 4-year-old going, or 2-year-old running around there wildly. His mom scooped him up.
Listen, man, I've got my 2-year-old 3 days ago, and I got a 4-year-old. So I know that chaos.
I'm 4 and 2 as well. We're right in the same boat, man.
Is it? So I got 2 boys. What about you?
2 boys. It's Thunderdome.
It is insane. It's completely insane at all times. And so, like, I don't know the weight class of yours, but my 4-year-old's like a little small for his age, and the 2-year-old is an absolute giant for his age. So they're basically in the same weight class. So I'm like, it's a fair fight. Yeah. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's the 2-year-old making the 4-year-old cry more often in our house, too, than the other way around. And the way I see it is, if you're 4 and you can't stop what the 2-year-old's doing, these are life lessons that you need to learn early. So I'm all for it.
It's our life is just mac and cheese, chicken nuggets.
That's it.
And tantrums.
That's it. And fighting over the same toy. Even though we have 700 of them, it's one toy that we have to fight over all the time. That's the beauty of fatherhood. Again, you're the father of 2 kids and 1 book, which was a good idea, but I totally get what you're saying. It's like, it's a hard sell. It's an inside basketball kind of book. Would this be the sort of thing that would fly off shelves? What made you say, yeah, this is a story people are going to want to hear?
Well, so I think that people are more into coaches and GMs than ever before. Fantasy sports basically is a huge driver for that. And these guys have become uber celebrities in their own town, and they're criticized and second guessed on sports talk radio. People think, I could be the offensive coordinator. I play Madden. Or I could be the GM. I do franchise mode. I built a great fantasy team. And so these guys have become stars. And I also think that the vast, vast, vast majority of us can't dunk a basketball, can't hit a home run out of Wrigley Field. But if we love sports, we're like, well, maybe I could coach. Maybe I could run the team, because you see some guys who kind of look like you. But then you got to like really stop and think about it. Like, well, how the hell do the guys who kind of look like me get to where they are? And then when you find out that there's actually this legitimate pipeline and network, and it's been intentional, and the vast majority, like the 98th percentile NBA fan, had no idea that it even existed. I was like, Well, that's a story because it can teach some people things, and there's valuable lessons here. Like, yes, it's a basketball book for sure, but I think it's a testament to a liberal arts education. I think it's a testament to hard work. I think it's a testament to networking, unconventional paths, hard work. Like there are a lot of management primers and life lessons that if I had a 16-year-old son who was considering where they were going to put on their college lists and I wanted to, show them the value of a liberal arts education, I think this book is pretty useful for that as well.
So, on one of the books behind me on this shelf is what Tools of the Titans. Oh, hold on. We got a 4-year-old. Ozzy, you got to keep calm. You got to go to bed, buddy. That's the way it works.
He said he wants daddy. I know.
Okay, I know. Jillian.
I'm trying.
Thank you.
Man.
Jillian, pick him up and take him out of here. My God. Oh, my God.
I've never related more to anything in an interview in my entire life.
Okay. So what was I saying? Oh, yeah.
There's talking about the book on the shelf behind you.
Tools of the Titans, or, and it's basically, it's a Tim Ferriss book, and he's got a through line. All the ultra successful people, whether it be business, art, technology, whatever, all of the really successful people, the two most in common things isn't starting point, isn't education. It's eating breakfast and taking a nap. I swear to God, it is the most common traits shared by ultra successful people, eating breakfast and taking a nap. Is there a through line of commonality that you found in your pipeline of guys coming from small schools that you see as the similar thing that ties them kind of all together?
Well, so there's no question that one of them is work ethic and humility, because they go to these places and, Emerson, where Sam Presti went, they had to use MapQuest to get to home games. They did not have a home gym. They would see, their coach drive the van and do the laundry. And so it was a mentality of, there's no job too small. There is no pampered athlete. There is no entitlement. There is no guarantee that you're going to have a rebounder when you get to the gym to get up drills. So like that would be one thing for sure. But I would also say about like the more modern executives, like the guys from the Jeff Van Gundy, Stan Van Gundy, Tom Thibodeau, like those guys are basketball lifers. They're grunt worker guys. They're the crazy work ethic guys. But the younger management types, Brad Stevens, Kobe Altman with the Cavs, Rafael Stone with the Rockets, what's fascinating about them is they all worked out of basketball after they graduated. Brad Stevens was at Eli Lilly. Rafael Stone was the youngest law partner in a law firm. Kobe Altman was a 6-figure real estate broker. And they just decided, I love basketball more than I love making money, and I'm going to figure out a way to get back into basketball. But they had these well-rounded educations and life experiences that then allowed them. Rafael Stone, when he gets the interview with the Rockets, I have to be in the room with the owner for the interview before I accept this job. And I have to have an office next to the general manager so that I can be in the room for basketball discussions. Those were his requirements for getting the job. He knew to ask for it. He had some entitlement, some empowerment from making money as a lawyer. Kobe Altman, real estate broker. He gets in with the Cavs. He connects with Dan Gilbert. Dan Gilbert made his billions in mortgages. They bond over real estate. So like a true well-rounded education. I am convinced that Brad Stevens could run for political office, that he could run a Fortune 500 company. The only other person I've ever met and talked to in sports like Brad Stevens is Theo Epstein. Like these guys are very, very intelligent, and they could do a bunch of different things. They happen to apply it to basketball. And so I think that that's the through line, is just the EQ, the emotional intelligence.
A guy that sounds like you're describing is Bob Myers, who obviously left the Golden State Warriors just a year ago, kind of gave the reins to Mike Dunleavy Jr. after that was his almost hand-selected heir apparent and his assistant GM. Bob Myers could be president of the United States, run a Fortune 500 company. He's the kind of guy you'd want to marry your daughter. He is, he's just one of those guys. He didn't come from a small school. He was a UCLA bench rider during the Jim Herrick run there. But it's amazing how hard that guy worked and just what a diplomat he really was along the way. And it's, all businesses are people businesses, even the big billionaire basketball industry is a people business. And you got to know how to have that business acumen and that personal touch. And man, he stayed up on that balance beam about as long as anyone can before they burn out.
Yeah, that's interesting. And now he's on TV.
Right.
And consulting.
This is his gap year before he does that next thing. This keeps his name in the headlines. It rises his profile and his Q rating and the next salary, I'm sure. And I think he really likes it. I think, the broadcasting bug, when it bites you for the first time and you haven't done it before, you're like, this is fun. It's all the sports with none of the stress, so.
Well, yeah, right. And a pretty sick paycheck at that level. And it's also pretty easy for them.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like we work at it and like it maybe comes easy to us after we get our hours in, but it's like, oh, you're Bob Myers. Literally anything you say is compelling. So we're interested in it. Like he has that built-in credibility that just makes it inherently easier.
Did you have someone who turned to the person that was your deepest well of information? Do you not want to divulge that source, or are they sourced throughout the entire book? Who was your most willing participant?
Probably Jeff Van Gundy. Jeff Van Gundy wrote the foreword. He, a lot of favors were called in, a lot of connections. A lot of people wanted to talk, because they're proud of their origin story. But the Jeff Van Gundy is such a nice guy and so media friendly. So after we did all of the reporting and we wrote out the book and we'd done over 100 interviews, it's like, okay, we got to get the forward. And when we had the book proposal for the forward, we thought it was going to be done by Kobe Altman, the president and GM of the Cavs, because he was an assistant at Amherst when Ben Kaplan, my co-author, was at Amherst. And so he was like the biggest name that we knew before the project started. And Ben and I were just talking about it and we're like, there's a whole chapter on Van Gundy. He gets Stan Van Gundy into the league. Tibbs, Steve Clifford, Andy Greer, face of the NBA Finals. I'm like this. No one actually hired more D3 people that ended up being head coaches than Jeff Van Gundy. Like he's the guy. So I'm like, all right, listen, I'll ask him. He's been cool. He's been easy to deal with. I've talked to him a couple of times. I'm like, I'll ask him. And I am like practicing my pitch, like in the mirror. I'm like, all right, Jeff, like we interviewed all these people. I can't think of anybody else who would be the perfect person to write this forward. You are the embodiment of like the D3 guy made good. It would be such an honor before we ask anybody else. I can't picture anyone else doing the forward. It would be an honor. Would you please do it? Do this whole big 90-second preamble. And he goes, yeah, sure. And that was it. I'm like, I go, yeah, sure. He goes, yeah, I did a forward for Coach Pitino's book one time. No problem. I'm like, but you know Rick Pitino. And so he was just like, he was so proud and cool and happy to do it and connect me with this and fact check me with this. And yeah, talk to my dad about this. Like, here's a picture of this. Like, it was amazing. And to your point, all businesses are people person businesses. Like he's good at that sort of thing. So Jeff Van Gundy would probably be the answer to that question.
You care about the topic, you sit down to write about it, you know something about it before you even start your journey. And then while you're in the process of putting all the information together, something hits you like a lightning bolt. It always happens. There's a moment of illumination that even sort of, that's the book. This is the focus. What was that for you guys as you were writing this?
That's a great question. We struggled a lot. Not struggled. We knew that we had to answer the question of D3 basketball is very, very white, and the NBA is very, very black. But there is a disparity in coaching staffs and front offices that is more white than black, and this pipeline contributes to that. How are we going to address that? So that was like a thing that we were thinking about and accumulating data and talking to people about and talking to each other about. And a couple of things happened. Like, one, we talked to two guys that I've mentioned, Kobe Altman and Rafael Stone, who are black general managers who came through the D3 pipeline, which illuminates that it's not exclusively white, but also even not the black guys, the white guys, again, because of that emotional intelligence and that well-rounded experience. There's actually studies, and we cite one of them in the book, that you would think small college is going to, that is majority white, there's going to be a lot of segregation. There's actually less segregation at smaller schools because everybody kind of has to know each other. Like, I went to Syracuse, not the biggest school in the world, but it was pretty segregated. There's something literally called South Campus where a lot of the athletes lived. I lived because there was no RA and you could have your own room, and I like to smoke pot and not have people be overlooking me. But like, a lot of the black people lived down there, and it was like, it was great. I had a blast. I got along with everybody, but it was pretty segregated. And so these guys, like, they met people from different backgrounds. And so Brad Stevens is like, I want to hire for diversity, but not for diversity just by race. He's like, I want to hire a former player, a D3 guy, a woman, a black guy. You know what I mean? Like, diversity is a virtue. And so that was like a uniform thing. So even though D3 is majority white, and definitely plenty of the people that have come through this pipeline are white guys, they also, to a man, recognize the value of diversity, have hired minority candidates, have promoted it, and are aware of it. And that's at least part of the solution, is acknowledging that that is a factor and acknowledging your blind spots. And so that we didn't know the answer until we seeked out the data and asked all of these people, the white guys and the black guys, that question, and were able to do like genuine reporting on how these people hire for these jobs. And talking to Brad Stevens about that was really interesting. Like, I've said about the Brad Stevens interview that if we would have been in suit and tie on a stage in front of Morgan Stanley, they would have paid him 50 grand for a speaking fee just to learn about leadership, hiring, firing, best practices, what he looks for in a resume, what he looks for in a candidate. Like, you know, so like talking to him about that was fascinating. And I think that was like maybe the biggest thing that we couldn't read from an article, that we had to actually talk to these people about to kind of understand how that works inside the NBA.
You know, Danny, I think we have so much in common. I think neither one of us, I know I'm not, I don't think you are either. You're not a class basher. You know, you don't look down at people who have less than, and you don't begrudge the people that have more than for having more than, that sort of thing. So this is going to sound like a little bit of a loaded question and take a shot at the elite. It's not that. That's not what this question is. Is there anything to be gleaned from so many of basketball's new thinkers coming from humble, smaller beginnings, where it feels like the new generation of baseball thinkers are coming from Ivy League schools? And this isn't just an invitation to bash Ivy League schools. I hope both of my kids go to Ivy League schools. You know what I mean? That'd be so much better than Daddy ever did at Indiana University. I would love them to go and get exemplary, world-class educations. Is there anything to be gleaned, though, that baseball is a little bit more stuffed shirty Ivy League than basketball?
You know, I don't know, because, like, listen, Amherst is a damn good school.
Yes, it is.
You know, Williams, Williams only D3 school that has a coach, a GM, and a player. Because Duncan Robinson started at Williams, then goes to Michigan, then gets into the NBA. Will Hardy, coach of the Jazz, and then Rafael Stone. So, like, they're really good schools, a lot of them, too. So I don't know, because these are really smart guys. So I don't know if I can go there with you completely, because I also think that, like, part of this is these guys, there's new owners. Like, new owners that are more likely to be tech guys or younger billionaires, they can relate to these people. They can say, yeah, I speak analytics, or I speak data science, or I know about computers, like whatever the case may be. And they might be more willing to be hired than the guy who was the 6'9" wing who played at Duke and had a cup of coffee in the NBA. You know, it's kind of crazy that statistically you are just as likely to be a coach or a GM nowadays if you play D3 ball or D1 ball. Like of the 12 teams that were in the NBA playoffs, like before the play-in or whatever, top 6 in the East, top 6 in the West, 3 of the 12, their head coach played D3 ball, and 5 of the 12, their president or their GM played D3 ball. Not all from the best schools, not or whatever, but just like there really does seem to be something, and we try to uncover it in the book, and I think we succeeded, of like the love of the game, the level of play being at a high enough level, the humility of it, and that the conventional wisdom used to be to relate to the 7-footer who could dunk through his legs. You had to at least be able to dunk. And now it's like, no, man, you just have to be able to relate to people. Teaching is coaching, coaching is teaching. And these guys are really smart, well-rounded people. And they're some of the best to ever do it in the NBA.
So my wife and I are off to Vegas. I'm picking this book up before I hit the airplane. Don't send me a promotional copy unless you send me an autographed one. But outside of that, I look forward to supporting this endeavor, man. I'm looking forward to the book as well. I think it's very interesting, and it's really a topic that I don't think anybody has sunk their teeth into before. So I know the book just came out. It's already #1 in the topic of basketball, in sports. You're doing very well, and I wish you the very best of luck with it. I really, really do. Can we talk a little sports before we say goodbye?
Yeah, of course. Of course. Happy to. I'll say one more quick thing about the book. 20 seconds.
Yeah, please.
The book, this is tug at the heartstrings, and I understand that, but some of your listeners are like, I'm not really interested, but I could support a cause. Portion of every book sold goes to brain cancer research in honor of my brother. The book is dedicated to the people that me and Ben lost along the way. I almost didn't take on the project because my brother had just been diagnosed with brain cancer. My dad had Alzheimer's. Then Ben's dad got diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. So both of our dads and my brother died before this book was able to be published. So we're donating a portion to brain cancer research in honor of my brother Brad. So you could, if you're like, I don't even care about the NBA. You're supporting brain cancer research. But let's talk Caleb Williams.
Here's to Brad. Cheers. And that's a fantastic endeavor. That's awesome. Thank you. So I was born in Chicago. I've grown up a long-suffering Bears fan. I have grown up a long-suffering Cubs fan. In 2016, it was like exercising the demons. I got married in 2016, and I was at Wrigley Field for World Series games. I cried at one of those. Wasn't the wedding. So
amen, man. Amen.
I care about Chicago an awful lot. I always have. I always will. How will the Bears not screw up Caleb Williams? How will he be the first quarterback, literally, that has ever worked out for the Chicago Bears?
And so if people think that's hyperbole, it isn't. They're literally the only franchise to never have a 4,000-yard passer. And they're literally the only franchise to never have a 30 touchdown passer, not 5,000-yard passer, not 40 touchdown passer, 4,030. So what you just said is not hyperbole. Here's why they won't screw it up. This honestly feels screw up proof, bust proof. And here's why. People compare Caleb Williams, the level of prospect, to guys like Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Andrew Luck. That level of prospect doesn't bust. They don't bust. They might underachieve. They might not reach their maximum ceiling, but they don't bust. The guys who busts are like Jamarcus Russell, Baker Mayfield, like I'm just talking about #1 pick.
Mitch Trubisky.
Okay, right, but not #1 pick.
I go.
Right. But I'm making a distinction, right? Because if the top prospect in the draft is a quarterback, they go #1.
Right.
And so yes, Mitch busted for sure. Obviously, Ryan Leaf bust. Like I can list a million busts, but like, and by the way, Baker Mayfield's made a bunch of money and is still playing, but like, but all those guys that I just mentioned, that level of prospect that Caleb is at, they all went to either 1 or 2 win teams. Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Andrew Luck. This is a 7-win team that added Keenan Allen, that added DeAndre Swift, that has for sure a top 10 defense in the NFL, maybe a top 5, we'll see, and the 9th pick in the draft. So this is the best situation in terms of roster. Coaching's another conversation. But in terms of roster, pure talent around him, it is the best situation that a number 1 pick quarterback has ever walked into. Period.
Well, situations dictate careers. Brock Purdy walked into the best situation any Mr. Irrelevant has ever walked into. So I hear you.
Well, so that's kind of the point, right? So it's like, I don't see a way he busts. I think it's like legitimately impossible that he busts, barring catastrophic injury or, some sort of demon in his. But we already know how Nick said it great. He's like, we already know how he is when he's rich and famous. He's rich and famous. Like, I really do think that the football situation, maybe Shane Waldron is completely incompetent and overhired, and Matt Eberflus.
Do you believe in Eberflus? I got questions.
Yeah, I would have fired him for one reason. I would have fired him because when you got the number 1 pick and you got the rights to draft Caleb Williams, there's no way you could possibly make the argument that the best coach in the world to develop Caleb Williams is Matt Eberflus. It's just an impossible argument to make. They say the culture, the leadership, the continuity, it's more than just one guy, blah, 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 blah. I disagree. I would have tried to hire Ben Johnson, make the Lions worse, make you better, try to hire Jim Harbaugh. You know what I mean? Like if this head coaching job was open, it would have been the best head coaching job available, with the possible exception of the Chargers because of LA and Justin Herbert. So I would have fired Eberflus and taken a step back in terms of continuity and what have you, and just hired an offensive guy. But they seem to love him, the players. I know management loves him. The defense should be really good. Continuity is an asset. And let's say that the coaches are bad. Justin Herbert has been incredible since his rookie year. 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He's had some bad coaches, but he's still incredible because he overcomes it because he was in an incredible situation, right? He has Corey Linsley and Rashawn Slater and Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. And so it's like, okay, well, so Justin Herbert was great from day one because of the players around him. Anthony Lynn screwed him. Kellen Moore screwed him. Like that part's been bad. Like they wasted his rookie contract because of the coaching, but no one with eyes would say that Justin Herbert isn't a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And I think that we've got a shot to be looking at that type of situation here because it is a players' league. The coaches matter in the NFL more than they matter in any other sport for sure, but it is still a players' league. Belichick and Brady, who won the breakup? Tom Brady. It's more of a player league than a coach league. So I think the players around Caleb Williams, in addition to his talent, make it virtually impossible that he busts.
So we began talking basketball. We'll wrap talking basketball because obviously the Bulls got a Jimmy Butlerless Miami team to beat to be the 8th seed. We'll see if that happens. The Golden State Warriors might have seen the, embers of their dynasty officially stomped out up in Sacramento. We'll see what the offseason decision on Klay Thompson is. I have had many a back and forth with Nick Wright about the Golden State Warriors. Back when we were humble radio guys and Nick didn't even have anything that resembled the hair that he's got now or the career that he has now. And he was doing afternoons or mornings, whatever he was doing in Houston. I mean, we would be arguing about Warriors and Rockets years ago. That's how Nick and I got to know each other so well. If this is the end of the Warriors dynasty, how does that look from where you're sitting in Chicago?
Well, they changed the sport. Like that'll be the legacy of the Warriors. You know, it's not the greatest dynasty ever, but it's in the team photo.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I don't think anyone would say it's the greatest dynasty ever.
No, but what they did do is change the way the game is played globally.
Yep.
From high school gyms to NBA gyms. And I don't, no one else has ever done that as a team.
Right. Exactly. Like that's their legacy. They changed the game. Now I will say, like, it's not their fault, and they just did it better than everyone, and it was inevitable because the NBA figured out that 3 is more than 2. And I love the NBA. And I'm not even saying that like basketball was better in the 90s. You go back and watch some of those games, it can be a rock fight. The athletes, the talent, it's better than ever before. But the product, my theory is that the players got too good. Everybody realized that 3 is worth more than 2. And when Steph Curry shoots a 3 or Klay Thompson shoots a 3, I can marvel at it. But when a 7-footer who can make 35% of them, it's like, well, that actually is a better shot than him trying to dunk on somebody. I'm like, technically you're right.
Right.
Like technically, yes, if he makes 35% of his threes, that's better than him making 50% of his twos. So like I can do the math, but like that sucks.
Right.
You
also need to balance the court. Like if you want these threes to go down, have a little balance out there. So let's not argue against the concept of attacking the basket, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, and so I just think that the game has become a little too uniform for my liking. The team that shoots the fewest threes in the league still shoots more than 30 a game. Everybody plays kind of the same way.
Right.
And too many guys got too good at shooting threes, and the court isn't bigger, the hoop isn't longer, there's no 4-point shot, they haven't eliminated the corner 3. Like, I think that so the Warriors, they didn't ruin basketball because it was going to happen anyway. They just were the absolute best at it. So they were a marvel to watch. I loved watching those teams. But then everybody else doing a Warriors impression, I'm like, ugh, I don't want to see Karl Anthony Towns shoot threes. Not interested. Like, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, so there is something that is going to be looked at through history of what the Warriors did to the game that was great for them, that was analytically correct, that was the best way to win, but that I do think has hurt the diversity of style in the game and has made the game a little bit more boring. So that is also one thing that I will unfairly associate with the Warriors.
Fair enough.
It's not fair because, again, like, if any team is going to shoot 53s a night, I want it to be the Warriors. Like, to be very clear.
You just didn't want the league where every team was shooting 53s a night.
Yes, exactly. I think it makes the league less exciting. And that's just one of the problems with the NBA today. Like,
right. Well, styles make fights, right? And it's just everybody kind of got the same style, and that's what has happened. And I'll tell you, that's kind of what has eaten the Golden State Warriors alive. Not only did they get old, but now everybody's playing like they used to with younger, hungrier athletes, and here you go. That's how you lose to Sacramento in a play-in game.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have all the respect in the world for the Warriors. It's just I do think that part of the legacy is going to be about how they fundamentally changed the game, and then we're going to have a reckoning on whether or not that, yes, it's the best way to win, but is it the best thing to watch as a fan? And I would say yes to the former and no to the latter.
Pipeline to the pros. Say yes to that the next time you're at your bookstore, you're on Amazon, you're thinking about ordering something, summer's coming up. You're going to want a little book to bring on the airplane to the beach. It sounds like a great book. I'm going to be picking it up for the vacation that I'm going on here. Danny, thank you very much. Good luck with everything. And look, your big book tour is going to put you on bigger shows with bigger hosts than this little one right here. But what I do have to offer you are readers. We actually read books here in San Francisco. That happens. So maybe we sold a few tonight, and certainly a few get read because of this. And then I can say, well, I will have done my job, and this will have been worth your while. And I'm so glad we finally got to meet. You got great talent. You got a great job in a great market, and keep up the great work, man. I wish you all the fame and fortune with this book. I really do.
Thank you, Damon, man. Always been a fan of yours from afar. I'm glad we could finally connect, man. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Danny Parkins, go buy the book, everybody. Go buy the book.